Welcome to the latest episode of the Federal's Worldly Wise, a weekly video show that dives deep into trending international issues for a better understanding. This week, we decided to give events in the Middle East a break and look closer at developments in India's immediate neighborhood. In 1999, when Indian officials were forced to negotiate with a hostile Taliban government in Afghanistan for the release of passengers from a hijacked Indian Airlines flight, who could have imagined that 25 years later, India and that very same Taliban would seek out each other as friends? And who could have imagined that Pakistan, which mothered the Taliban during the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, would in 25 years find itself sharing a near hostile relationship with its protege? At this point in time, as we speak, Afghanistan and India share political compulsions, even if unrelated to each other, that are moving both towards an unlikely partnership, if not friendship. For the Indian government, which all but cut ties with Afghanistan after the Taliban returned to power in August 2021, there is an urgent need to engage with Kabul. In its own neighborhood, New Delhi has fallen out with Bangladesh since the ouster of its close ally, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, in a popular upsurge last August. The succeeding interim government of Mohammad Yunus, propped up by students and Islamic groups inimical to Sheikh Hasina and India, has been cold to New Delhi, bordering on hostility. Within Bangladesh, there have been a spate of attacks on minorities, mainly Hindus. This has damaged relations with the Hindutva-centric BJP government in New Delhi. Meanwhile, India's relations with Islamabad has rarely been worse than now after the Pahalgam attack in April and the consequent conflict with Pakistan. The Indian government realizes that the breakdown in relations with Bangladesh has given an opening to Islamabad for restoring its ties with the Yunus-led administration in Dhaka. Since the fulcrum that moves South Asian politics is the unending hostility between India and Pakistan, all developments are invariably related to this reality. China, a die-hard friend of Islamabad, is attempting to create a new trilateral axis with Bangladesh and Pakistan. This means that 55 years since Bangladesh was formed, India is once more likely to be hemmed in by hostile forces on its east and west. This is big enough to cause sleepless nights for the mandarins in India's foreign ministry. The Xi Jinping government in Beijing is attempting something similar in India's west, forming multilateral or a trilateral axis with Afghanistan and Pakistan. India has one option to dent the strategic plans of China and Pakistan, to do the unthinkable, build friendly relations with Afghanistan and cozy up to the Taliban. Mind you, this is not easy given the Taliban's natural affinity to Pakistan by history, religion, and political ideology. But fortunately for New Delhi, Taliban is cut up with Pakistan. The Taliban 2.0 is not the same as 1.0. The cozy ties between Pakistan and the Taliban were ruptured in the first decade of 2000 after the Al-Qaeda's 9/11 attacks on the US. Washington applied enormous pressure on the then Pervez Musharraf government to go after the Al-Qaeda, Taliban, and other US Islamic groups operating out of Pakistan. Musharraf had no choice but to comply despite Pakistan's close proximity to the Islamic groups. After all, Islamabad over the decades had become exceedingly dependent on Washington's military and economic dole to survive and survive well. In the process of obliging the US and arresting the top leaders of the Afghan Mujahideen and the Al Qaeda based in Pakistan, Musharraf ended up angering the Islamists. An offshoot of the Afghan Taliban called the Taliban emerged in Pakistan in 2007, which turned against the Pakistani state. Though the Pakistan Taliban is considered distinctly different from its Afghan counterpart in terms of its organizational structure, they share a common ideology and strategic interests. In the backdrop of this situation, the Taliban returned to power in Afghanistan in 2021. Since then, its relationship with Islamabad has bordered on hostility. Complicating matters in the last 4 years are a series of attacks in Pakistan attributed to the Taliban. Islamabad, in retaliation, has bombed areas in Afghanistan close to the border, considered the base of the Pakistan Taliban. These bombings have resulted in the killing of several Afghan civilians. Furthermore, Pakistan has started forcibly deporting en masse thousands of Afghan refugees back to their country, angering Kabul. So, the increasing hostility between the Taliban government in Afghanistan and Pakistan appears to have provided the perfect opening for New Delhi to move in. So far, India has not formally recognized the Taliban government, but its consulate in Kabul is open, manned by lower level external affairs officials. Afghanistan has a representative in its consul office at Mumbai. India has also resumed issuing visas for Afghans. Since January this year, when Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri met acting Afghan Foreign Minister Amir Khan Mutaki in Dubai, the once dormant relationship between New Delhi and Kabul seems to be on the verge of an unprecedented takeoff. The one confirmation that there had been a substantive change in the Taliban's mindset towards India came when it condemned the Pahalgam terror attack. This was followed by India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar making a telephone call to Mr. Mutaki, thanking him for that. But the path to a friendly, exclusivist relationship with the Taliban government continues to be a challenge. China, eager to prevent a swamping of Afghanistan by India, has already hosted a trilateral meet with Kabul and Islamabad. As with other nations around India, Afghanistan will soon find itself caught between an India-China tussle. And again, as with New Delhi's South Asian neighbors, Kabul will naturally attempt to leverage the India-China rivalry to its advantage. New Delhi will be looking at an opening into Afghanistan, irrespective of whether China and Pakistan too are present there. However, if India, as a secular liberal democracy, increases its engagement with the Taliban government in Afghanistan, it could face moral questions. For the Taliban government is a highly repressive theocratic dispensation. There is absolutely no democracy in that country. Women in Afghanistan have been systematically marginalized and oppressed. They have been locked out of formal access to education and employment. All their women's sports teams, including cricket, have been disbanded. Its women's cricket team is now located and plays in exile. India has so far not displayed any overt solidarity with the ousted Afghan sportswomen. These are among the reasons why no nation has formally recognized the Taliban dispensation in Afghanistan, though, of course, that has not prevented them from engaging with the government. A paradox in India's growing closeness with the Taliban is in terms of the religious ideological differences between the Islamic Taliban and the Hindutva driven BJP. In the cynical world of real politics, however, these differences don't count. It's the so-called national interest or self-interest that dictates policy. And we can see that aplenty in the newly emerging India-Afghan relationship. Thank you.